the entire concepts of virtue, goodness, and all the other things that, martyrdom, all these things that we seem to, as humans, hold so highly, are they not, they actually, through Abraham's eyes, don't really exist. I mean, the idea of virtue is that one thing is very good, the other thing is very bad. And as I've understood Abraham, everything is basically subjective depending on your position. It's a matter of perception. So there can be no virtue except the virtue that you yourself see for yourself. In other words, it's very good because I feel very good. This makes it a virtue as opposed to the world sees it as good, so therefore I shall suffer. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay.
The words are tricky because different words mean different things to different people at different times.
Right.
Even the word pride is one of those words, or patriotism. In other words, let's talk about the word patriotism.
I was going to. Yes.
When someone says, I am patriotic, for some, your heart swells in a feeling of appreciation for where you are. And for some, the feeling of patriotism makes them want to push very hard against something that they feel threatens it, you see. And so the same word can be felt very differently under those situations. And so we're not so encouraging of finding words to gather around as we are reaching for the feeling of the fullness of who you are. In other words,
yes, as a human, since we're stuck with words, I'm trying to remove myself from them, and that's why the question, I mean, the idea of understanding, trying to get through when virtue is such a big thing and people are...
When you say stuck with words, we think words are wonderful because they bring you to places of communication.
Yes.
In other words, the fact that words are being offered here gives a lot of focusers an opportunity to rendezvous in a short period of time and move forward very fast. So let's take the word patriotism for just a moment. When we say the word doesn't really make you stuck, just feel the difference between patriotism as you are enjoying your great space and loving your heritage and appreciating where you be and loving your life and focusing upon the positive aspects of what surrounds you and feeling joy in your now, as opposed to patriotism in that hateful picking up the sword and defending. In other words, you can tell they are very different feelings utilizing the same word. And so all we are suggesting is when you are paying attention to the way you feel, then you are allowing the fullness of who you are. And only when you are allowing the fullness of who you are you really enjoying this life experience in the way you've intended. You cannot be separate from who you are and even come close to fulfilling your reason for being or enjoying it in the way you intended. That's why being connected to who you are feels so wonderful. It's why you gravitate toward it. It's why so many of your well-meaning intentions, many of them that go astray, exist to begin with. In other words, we don't know of anything that anybody wants or has ever wanted, anything. A material object, a state of being, a state of world events, nothing. No desire that we've ever seen focused within anyone was for any other reason that they believed, the individual believed that in the having of it, that they would feel better. In other words, it is the most innate, natural, some call it selfish, we call it gloriously selfish, impulse that comes forth from within. And what that means is that all of you are still rooted or connected to that knowledge that it is good to feel good.
Okay. Actually, that took me out of order, but now that you've raised it, I wanted to, I will enter that one question. It's to do with the incident that happened in New York. From my own part, my initial reaction is less important, but when I tried to find my way back from it, the next day I did. And the way I found my way back into some sense of well-being was first to analyze what had happened to me and figure that part out. But secondly, I laid there reading Harry Potter with the television on, but the sound off. And what I did was, whenever it appeared that something positive was being said, I turned the sound on. And what sort of overwhelmed me, the swelling that you were just talking about, I'm a Canadian. I felt a patriotism for the U.S. If it would have been Japan, I would have felt Japanese. It didn't really matter. But what had happened and what focusing on the aspect of it that actually got me personally back was the overwhelming unity that suddenly seemed to come not from the pushing against. That was there too, of course, but I ignored that or tried to. But from the overwhelming support and sudden, I guess it was everybody focusing on the same thing, and that word was to help. And it was sort of personified for me by an individual who was running down the street, who, and I'll be very frank, if I met him in a dark alley, I'd run the other way. He was covered with tattoos and everything, and I would have written this person off as somebody who might be a threat to me. It would have been my automatic reaction. However, when I turned the sound on, this person was interviewed, and he had been running, and the media guy said, "Why are you going back to ground zero?" And the guy just turned around, looked at him, and said, "To help." And in those two words, for me, that was like, I couldn't even explain to you. What you were talking about, patriotism, the feeling, the whatever, and I guess I'm a little puzzled as to what I'm feeling, because I felt it ever since then. I really don't discuss the negative part. I'm not interested in the pushing against. I'm not listening to the rest because I have what I want. The unity aspect of this, although I know you can have this individually, but to the degree of what I felt since then from people, it's
we think that what you are articulating here is something that you are feeling, that your inner being is feeling, and you are feeling it too because of your closeness to the vibration, and that is your inner beings are all rejoicing in the powerful desire that has been focused. In other words, there is a definiteness of purpose that gives everyone more life.
Okay.
In other words, the petty differences that people were using as their reason to not allow source energy to flow have all temporarily been laid aside.
Yes.
And
Yes.
There is a tremendous current that is flowing toward
positive. It's just unity. It's like, it's like people who hated each other or may hate each other again tomorrow for the moment are just unified. So I wondered what that is. So that's my inner being rejoicing, and I'm close to that vibration.
It is.
Because I could have sailed. I mean, it's
an interesting thing also, because if you watch two armies, you find that on both sides of the conflict.
Can you explain that a little?
What we are saying is two groups of people
Yes.
who are clear about what they now want because of their relationship with the other causes powerful rockets of desire, and both armies are actually empowered by the ensuing rush of energy that is coming in response to their requests.
You feel it at football games and things like that too, only perhaps not to the group.
You feel it it any time anyone focuses.
And that is a positive thing because it feels good, right?
It is not only a positive thing, it is the basis of the universe.
Okay.
In other words, that's that contrasting thing that we keep talking about. That is that life-giving thing. Okay. Now, again, we want to express it in a way that you can hear it, and we think you will hear it here in the clear space that you have arrived at. We are not at all encouraging catastrophes toward this end, because they are not necessary. But it seems to sometimes take something big to cause you to focus in a strong way, even in your own individual lives. People often sort of mush around, giving their attention here and here, not being very specific about what they think about, and in the process, they sort of mess up their experience until they attract something that's a vibrational match to something not wanted. And then in that catastrophe, big or small, out of it comes a sort of definiteness of purpose that for a while gives them a nice ride on the energy. Right. And what we've been talking about in all of the workshops that we've been offering long before this stronger point of focus that just happened on the 11th is that you do not have to wait for something major to get the energy flowing by your making decisions and finding vibrational harmony with them. You can get into that stream and move along swimmingly without it. The good news is, contrast that produces a catastrophe sends up rockets of desire that summon more energy that gives you a ride of well-being. Contrast that is milder and does not produce catastrophe still causes rockets of desire that when you focus upon it summons energy. So what we're saying to you is you can't get it wrong. There is not really one way that is better than the other in terms of the outcome of the whole. It just depends upon the ride that you want to have along the way. Which brings us to this all-important point. Some of you like slower, easy rides, and some of you like harder, more raucous rides. And if you don't believe us, then ask yourself, what are those football players doing on the field anyway? You see it all around you. There are those who engage in war because it takes that to get them exhilarated, and there are those that would never engage in war because they are exhilarated without it. And what we're wanting to say to you is one is not right and one is not wrong. That your physical environment is big enough to house you with all of your intentions, and what you do individually makes the difference in the way your life plays out.
Right, right. Okay, I understand.
We have enjoyed this interaction immensely. It is wonderful to come together with those like you, who are coming more and more in every day to understand that you are the creator of your own experience. Worry not. Well-being abounds. Be playful about it. Look for thoughts that feel good. Trust that your inner being knows what's best. Reach for thoughts that your inner being joins you fully in. Or better stated, reach for thoughts that cause you to allow the fullness of who you are to flow. And it is our promise to you that you will continue to thrive, for it is the nature of who you are. There is great love here for you. We are complete.